For most of human history, ordinary people weren't encouraged to be precise with language. That was reserved for a select few, priests, scholars, mystics, rulers, because if you shape how someone interprets events, you shape how they experience life. And what's strange is that today, we talk more than ever, but almost nobody pays attention to how they're speaking, especially internally. The thoughts you repeat, the labels you give situations, the stories you default to when something happens. And that choice matters because your thoughts direct energy. And where your energy goes, that determines how your life responds. And so in this episode, I want to show you how you're already speaking to the universe every single day. Not through what you ask for, but through what you consistently give attention to. How to direct your attention with intention, and how to communicate from a place that will create anything you want out of life. The big mistake that most people make is they think that they communicate with the universe when they're asking for something. In reality, communication is ongoing, it's constant, it's happening through every thought that you have, every emotion that you experience, every reaction that you have. And so you don't turn on communication when you want to manifest or materialize something in your life. You've actually been broadcasting signals your entire life through what you expect, what you tolerate, what bothers you, and what you repeat inside of yourself. So the universe doesn't respond to what you say once. It responds to what you consistently mean through attention and emotional energy. And this is why patterns repeat themselves even when you start to want things to change, because the signal hasn't actually changed. Only the words have. And so the first shift is awareness, because you can't change what you're sending out until you notice what's actually going on inside of you. And I want to introduce you to this concept that I only share with my private clients, which is the idea of vibrational fluency. See, most of us have learned how to speak a particular language, maybe two, but we never learned how to speak the language of the universe. Speaking to the universe isn't metaphorical, it's literal, but it's not in the way that people usually think. Reality is not responding to your words alone, it's responding to vibration. And vibration has a language. Just like you become fluent in French or Spanish, you don't become fluent by memorizing words, you become fluent by understanding the meaning, the tone, and how expression all work together. That's how you master a language. And the universe really operates the same way. It doesn't listen for what you want, what you ask for out of desperation. It's responding to what you're consistently broadcasting. And so I want to talk to you about these 3 layers of vibrational fluency. Because when you understand this, you can develop an internal communication mechanism that allows you to effectively build a relationship with the reality around you. And so the first level of vibrational fluency, the first layer, is thoughts. Thoughts are the very, very beginning. They are a representation of the early stages of manifestation or materialization. A thought is actually a manifestation. It's a very subtle vibration. It is a quiet signal that starts to shape your perception before there's any emotion or before any action ever happens. And this is why thinkers like Napoleon Hill pointed out that thoughts create your reality. Not because thoughts are powerful on their own, but because they start the transmission. But they're the weakest signal, right? They're the most subtle signal. And that's why you can think negatively a lot and still actually succeed. And that's the good news, right? Because a thought is only the first layer. And as spiritual traditions point out, it doesn't take perfect thinking to move reality. Jesus said, all you need is faith the size of a mustard seed to tell the mountain to move from here to there. So thoughts are the first manifestation, and your thoughts, the habit of your thoughts, whether it's worry, whether it's excitement, whether it's gratitude, whether it's anxiety, whether it's resentment or comparing yourself to other people, they actually begin to represent your relationship with the field. The thoughts don't occur in your head. Thoughts are something that you tune into and attract from the field. All ideas that have ever existed, all thoughts that have ever existed exist in this field around us, referred to as the akasha or the ether, or the fourth dimension, or the unified field. So over time, what you're actually doing is you're building a relationship with the field. So this is the first part of manifestation. It actually begins to shape your brain. We could look at your brain and we could map out all your neural networks. And I'm sure with AI in the future, we'll be able to read your belief systems represented by your memories and the meanings that you gave the experiences of your life. So this is your entanglement with your reality. It's the very beginning. It's the most subtle. And then the second layer is emotions, because thoughts naturally turn into feelings. If I have a thought that someone shouldn't have done something, it might make me angry. If I have a thought that I might run out of money, it might create worry inside of me. And so this is a really interesting way that the human being operating system works, is Thoughts are this electrical activity in your brain, so that's a vibration, right? This is part of the vibrational fluency. It's an electromagnetic phenomenon that you're able to control inside of you. And then those thoughts transmit through your nervous system, and it's not just in your brain now, but your whole nervous system lights up with this vibration, and we would call that an emotion. That's the second layer of vibrational communication or vibrational fluency. So how you feel regularly is actually a much clearer signal than what you think occasionally. Your thoughts are, as I mentioned before, they're subtle. They go from this thought to that thought to another thought, right? That's an irregular part of the broadcast system, but your emotions, where you start to emotionally live, that's what starts to send out a more consistent signal to the universe. That's how the universe understands, because now your entire body is vibrating according to this frequency. And from a behavioral psychology standpoint, repeated thoughts begin to train your nervous system. They condition emotional states. And emotional states begin to predict the types of actions that you'll take, the things that you'll start to do consistently. If you're consistently stressed or frustrated or resentful, by the way, it's not that you're a bad person or you're stupid or you're not very good at this game of personal growth. It's just that you're requesting more experiences that are going to create that same emotional reaction. This isn't good or bad. It's just understanding how the system works. And this is why mystics emphasized emotion over thought, right? Neville Goddard, one of the really phenomenal mystical teachers, taught that emotion imprints itself into reality. He said that feeling is the secret. You have to feel your way through it. Now, one of the things that a lot of my clients ask me is, well, but Dave, if I want an outcome, like if I want to feel healthier, but I'm in chronic pain, how do I feel healthy when that's not my reality? You know, if I want to feel abundant and prosperous, but I look at my bank account and there's not enough, and I look at my credit cards and there's a lot of them, there's a lot of debt, how do I feel abundant? And so I get it, that can be tricky. What I would suggest is don't worry so much about feeling what you want. Just stop feeling the old habit of what you don't want. Just stop broadcasting the primary signal of unwellness or financial insecurity, and your reality will start to change. Okay, but feeling is that next level of vibrational fluency. It's one step greater in terms of vibrational impact or communication than thoughts. The third and the strongest layer of vibrational communication is what you speak. Because if you think about it, speech is now a thought that has then evolved into an emotion, and it is now turning into the first step of action, what you say. You're now bringing it into reality. It is a more material, more powerful broadcast to the universe. And the good news is it's indicative of your emotions and your thoughts, so you can start to track it back. And so when you speak, you're no longer operating internally, you're now transmitting outward. And you're reinforcing this broadcast, this vibration into the physical world. That's why complaining, labeling things as bad, being casually negative, they have a real impact in your life, not just on the people around you, right? But you're not just describing life now, you're amplifying a frequency. And the universe is neutral, it's loving, right? It's designed to support us in growing and evolving. That's why it gives us what we ask for, and we learn about ourselves through the experiences that we create, and we have the opportunity to go, oh, you know, I don't like that, so there must be something inside of me that I need to shift. But it's not evaluating you positively or negatively, it's simply responding to what's being transmitted. It's a beautiful, loving part of the mechanics of this system. And so this is what people miss when they say, you know, the universe doesn't give you what you want, right? It's like, no, it gives you what you're vibrationally fluent in. And so for most people, thoughts and emotions are hard to catch in real time, but speech is obvious, right? It's audible, it's repeatable, it's easy to clean up. And so sometimes when you're doing mindset work, the easiest way to change your reality is to watch what you speak and stop speaking negatively. And if you actually do that, you'll start to backtrack and feel those habits of emotion less and actually start to transform the thoughts that are creating that speech. This is sometimes the fastest way to actually shift your signal. They've done some studies with professional athletes and college athletes where they went in and they just had them start changing the way that they speak, and they significantly improved their performance. Now, I'm not talking about suppressing reality here. What I'm talking about is stop reinforcing the version of reality that you don't want. Become vibrationally fluent. It doesn't mean that you're being fake or positive all the time. It means being precise and intentional and aware of what you're broadcasting. In many ways, it's about learning how to develop an inner attitude of being unbothered by what's happening around you, knowing that if you do not reinforce the reality that you do not want, it will pass, right? Problems do not come to stay, they come to pass, but we can keep these problems or challenges in our life by matching their frequency and continuing to broadcast that to the universe. And so this isn't mystical, right? This is just observable. This is really why the simplest takeaway of this episode matters. Watch what you say because you're always being heard. Hey, it's David. Quick interruption to your regularly scheduled podcast episode. I want to let you know about an opportunity to go even deeper into this work together. If you have not yet, please check out the show notes. In there, we've got links to both our Mind Hack and our Whole Human Framework programs. Our Mind Hack course is an incredible framework. It's the foundation of everything that I teach on this show to help you understand how to become deeply aware of the subconscious programs that are holding you back and to teach you the technologies and frameworks to allow you to dramatically transform those belief systems and rewire your brain. Again, the Mind Hack program is our 7-day self-paced program. We also have our 12-week course, The Whole Human Framework. And we've got both of them right now bundled in a special offer for those of you who want to go big, want to go fast, and who understand that you don't want to put off another day of your full potential or holding on to unnecessary stress, anxiety, or suffering, but you want to be liberated from these habits of thinking and have a powerful living experience. Check out the link in the show notes. Jump on over to the website. Take a look at the programs and the extraordinary success stories of entrepreneurs just like you who have gone through these courses, and I will see you on the other side. And now, back to your regularly scheduled podcast episode. Every thought that enters your mind is neutral at first. Okay, it has no power until you actually entangle with it, until you give it attention. You're going to have thoughts that are consistently occurring just like your heart is consistently beating. But attention is what activates the thought. So attention isn't passive awareness. Attention is agreement with the thought, right? Or what Neville Goddard refers to as assumption. You assume that money is hard to make. You assume things don't work out for you. You assume that you will or won't be healthy. And then what you stay loyal to in terms of your assumptions, you consistently energize. And this is why unwanted patterns persist even when people don't want them, or even when they start doing affirmations or incantations, because internally that vibrational fluency has not been developed and you're still broadcasting what you don't want, right? People keep revisiting the same thoughts emotionally over and over, and then emotion locks that attention in place. And in both neuroscience and spirituality, attention is understood as the currency of consciousness, right? This is where you spend your spirit or your soul or your energy, and where attention goes, your neural pathways strengthen. And so you start to deepen those belief systems, you start to entrain those emotional habits, and then your perception starts to organize around them, right? So you actually start to see reality and create reality according to what it is that you're holding inside of you. As Eckhart Tolle, one of the great spiritual teachers of our time, said, whatever you fight, you strengthen, and whatever you resist persists. And so even when you're trying to solve a problem or change your external reality, you're actually feeding that same vibrational frequency. So most people believe like they're the victims of their thoughts. And in reality, they're unconsciously consenting to them by engaging and analyzing and replaying them. I can't tell you how many times I've noticed that I have some argument with someone, or something happens in my life that disturbs me, right? It disrupts my inner world. And then I get in the car and I'm carrying that situation with me, even though it's no longer there. There was an old parable of two monks who were traveling across the countryside, and they came upon a stream, and there was a woman who couldn't get across the stream. And she said, "Oh, can you help me? I need to get to the other side. I have to get home to my family." And in the order of these monks, they were prohibited from touching women. And one of the monks, without hesitating, grabs the woman, picks her up, takes her across the stream, puts her down on the other side so she can go back to her family. And the second monk can't believe that the first monk just did this. And anyway, they continue on for, another day. And the second monk still cannot believe that the first monk touched this woman. It's like the one thing they can't do according to their order. They spend the night, they wake up the next morning, they travel for another day. Finally, they're setting a fire on the second night, and the second monk still can't believe it. And he says to the first monk, "I cannot believe that you picked that woman up." And the first monk says, "I picked that woman up and I dropped her off right on the other side of the stream." He said, "You've been carrying her for the last 2 days." And that's what we do. And your attention doesn't care by the way, if your thoughts are positive or your thoughts are negative. It just simply amplifies whatever you're bringing your attention to. And so this is why trying to get rid of a thought often backfires, right? Because struggling with a thought or saying, I don't want to think this, or I need to be thinking something different, it's still giving that same thought attention. And attention keeps the pattern alive. And that's why my suggestion is, a lot of different personal growth teachings out there say like, oh, you need to like really visualize the change that you want. You have to feel the change that you want. That can actually create even more resistance. What I would suggest is when you notice that your inner world is disturbed and that you're not putting out a broadcast that's congruent with what you want to create, just go do something else. Just stop the broadcast. Don't worry about broadcasting exactly what you want. Just stop the broadcast that's creating what you don't want. Because as the Buddha said, where your attention goes, energy flows. Saying yes to a thought doesn't always look like agreement. Sometimes it looks like, worrying about something or ruminating about something or rehearsing it in your mind. And so saying no just simply means you refuse to feed the thought with energy. You do something else. You go for a walk with the dog. You go get a cup of coffee. You do something that you enjoy. You phone a friend. You just stop the broadcast, because in that way you become unbothered by the situation, right? You notice it and then you let it pass, knowing that as you manage your inner state, right, as you master your vibrational fluency, your outer reality has to change to match your inner calm. So this is the quiet power that most people never learn. You don't control which thoughts appear, they're going to appear, but you do control which ones get reinforced. And over time, when you consistently ignore those thoughts, they lose momentum, right? And this is neurological. We start to see the myelin around the synaptic connections begins to deteriorate. The electrical signal is not as strong. You can actually withdraw a belief system from your brain by no longer giving those thoughts and the emotions associated with them attention, and certainly not speaking what you don't want into reality. So what you consistently attend to starts to become your lived reality, whether you want it or not. And this is one of the most direct ways you speak to the universe, not through words alone, but through sustained attention. So when attention becomes intentional, the patterns begin to dissolve in your life without you having to force your way through them, and reality starts responding to a clear, more coherent signal. And once you give attention to a thought, right, interpretation follows automatically. So in other words, attention decides what gets processed, and interpretation decides what it means. So interpretation is the story that you attach to what you're noticing. So it's the difference between this is happening to me, right, or this is happening through me, right? Am I a victim of life, or am I creating life through my attention? So that story immediately directs your energy. The body responds oftentimes before logic ever has a chance to step in. So if you interpret a situation as a threat, your energy is going to contract. And that's okay. You notice that, and then you can release it. If you interpret the same situation as information or feedback, right, you stay grounded, your energy stabilizes, your attention widens, and your choices return. And this is why attention alone isn't enough, right? You can notice a thought, but if you interpret it unconsciously, it still drains you. And most people think they're exhausted because life is hard. But in reality, they're exhausted because they're struggling with the reality as it's showing up, right? It's the meaning that they're assigning to everything that is draining their energy. And energy doesn't move towards what you want. It moves towards what you consistently interpret as important or dangerous or defining. And this is why positive thinking often fails. So people try to change their intention without actually changing the meaning of their reality. But when your interpretation shifts, your effort drops, and the same actions suddenly require less force. And this is what alignment actually looks like, right? This isn't hustle or grind or excitement. This is alignment. And when attention and your interpretation line up, meaning you focus on what serves you and you give it a meaning that's aligned with what you want to create, energy stops leaking and starts working for you instead of against you. So speaking to the universe isn't about asking for things out loud. It's about how you consistently relate to what's happening through your language, through your thoughts, through the meaning that you're giving the experience of your life. And it's happening all day long, every single day. And this work is simply about making that process conscious instead of automatic. And you don't have to do it perfectly. If you just bring a little bit of consciousness and you make some small shifts, you'll change your reality dramatically. And most people make the mistake of thinking they're communicating through what they want. But in reality, they're communicating through their habit of thoughts, their habit of emotions, and their habit of speech. The same thoughts, the same meanings, the same emotional responses on a loop. And the universe doesn't respond to what you want. once, it responds to what you reinforce consistently, what you're consistently transmitting. And this is why awareness is so powerful and more powerful than effort, because the moment you notice how you're framing an experience, you regain choice. And instead of saying like, hey, how do I change this out there? A more powerful question is, how am I reacting to this inside of here, right? When something unexpected happens, that's the moment communication is happening most clearly. And so your reaction starts to set the tone for everything that follows. You can get to a point where you feel that you're reacting, and then remember, that's what's happening out there, and it's just a projection. And you can change the projection if you relax through the experience. Very much working with your reality is very much like being in yoga. It's like you get in an uncomfortable posture. There are circumstances or situations that are going to show up, and you have to breathe through it. And so if you can relax through the experience, you can allow the experience to transform, right? You don't even need to come up with a better story about the situation. You can simply say, hey, this is passing. Something better is coming. I know that my reality is already changing because my reaction to my reality is different. As Marcus Aurelius wrote, he said, if you're distressed by anything external, the pain is not due to the thing itself, but to your estimate of it. Over time, these small little internal decisions, they start to compound. And so your patterns start to lose momentum, your reactions start to soften, your options start to expand. And this is how people begin to experience greater levels of synchronicity or things suddenly working out. Not because reality changed overnight, but because the signal became aligned. When language is precise and your attention is intentional and your interpretation is clean, you stop fighting life and you start moving with it. That's what it actually means to speak to the universe. So if there's one thing I want you to take from this, it's this. You're not disconnected from the universe. You've been communicating the entire time through the thoughts that you have, the emotions you feel, the words that you speak. Nothing changes all at once, but the moment you become more precise with how you speak internally, life has no choice but to respond differently. And not because you start forcing it, but because you've stopped sending mixed signals. So if you love this episode and it helped you see your patterns more clearly, I want you to just sit with it. Like, pay attention this week to how you describe things, how you speak about your reality, especially when something unexpected happens, because that's where the real shift can begin. And if you want to go deeper into this work, into perception and attention and how reality reorganizes, you'll find a bunch of links in the description with some more resources to explore. My book is on Amazon. We've got some digital courses. We've got my live event coming up. Ton of resources for you. I invite you to become a part of this community. If you haven't yet, you're following along on YouTube, subscribe, leave me a comment or a question. I try to respond to as many as I can. If you're following along on audio, my team and I would love a rating or review. And I appreciate you being here. I love you so much. And I will see you in the next episode.